Several industries and organisations. I know that you were working in the financial services sector. You've worked for some very, very large, well-known management consulting organisations, and you're now currently with a very young organisation. What has been some of your key learnings as you've made those moves throughout your career?
Resilience, really. What's always guided my career is a desperate desire to do something new. So I'm not someone who is naturally at home in an organisation where there's little change, and I've always sought it out. And I didn't go into my career with some great plan. It was always, what am I going to be doing next? My career really splits into two halves. The first half with Barclays Bank. I joined the bank as a clerk, and some 15 years later, I was head of operational strategy and planning for the bank. And that's my anchor point. So I understand how banking and industries work, and I understand it from the first day of a junior person up to becoming an executive in an organisation. And that's really a very firm anchor point. But I wanted to use that then as a launch pad. And I'd had the opportunity to work with management consultants, Coopers & Lybrand, Accenture, so I went into consulting, and that's a very hard switch for someone who's had a long-term career in a single organisation, and probably joined it with the expectation of spending 40 years there, and that really tested my resilience. And what I learned is every time you change organisations, or even in jobs, the first 6 months you just have to dedicate yourself to it, throw yourself in, and go with the flow. And I think probably the biggest learning in that pivotal jump for me was converting from an industry like banking going to management consulting. And one of the things you need to learn if you're going into a consulting environment is you actually have two jobs. One job is to do everything you can to make your clients successful, and sometimes that means working in your clients' offices for a year or 2 years for longer term projects. But you've also got at the same time to be running your parallel career back at home in your consulting business. And if you can make that work, then actually you can pretty much survive most organisations.
And having watched you on LinkedIn and seen a range of posts and a range of your insights, I know that's something it's really passionate about. And I was fortunate enough to have you write a testimonial for my book last year. And this is not about promoting my book. It's actually an insight into yourself, which is intelligent automation. The rise of the digital worker will transform our workplace. Every activity, every role, every automated or augmented by AI. In Industry 4.0, we are in a permanent state of transformation. Why then are executives not giving attention to those hard lessons of successful change within this book that discusses Industry 4.0? And for Industry 4.0 is not about people and robots. It is about people and robots, and that change is hard. And I think that's quite an insightful view of how you've actually seen the industry when you were at your previous role at IBM as a head of automation across Europe, and you've moved into AntWorks, and some of those nuances that you said, the differences in organisations. One of the things that I struggle with in my advisory work with the clients that I work with is many of them actually probably not in Industry 3.0, let alone thinking about Industry 4.0. So how do you talk to the executive group about that? And then what's some of those key early milestones that you find within your clients to give them hope to move into that area?
Yeah. So it's a real challenge, and interestingly, the narrative around COVID-19 is very much about how that is accelerating the drive for digitization. So working from home, remote working has meant that many of us who are continuing to work from home are using collaborative tools, like the tools that we're using now. So when I wrote the foreword to that book, that's some months, maybe a year ago, I guess. Actually, the imperative is far greater now. And what I mean by it is what you know, if you look forward, what is the role and what is work going to be like at the time that I wrote that, I thought it was going to be 3-5 years hence. I think it's we're going to see it much more quickly now. But what it means is that routine work, the extraction of data from documents, the movement of data around organizations, the routine that all of us do, whether we are in more junior roles, clerical administration roles, or in senior roles running organizations, a lot of our work is about finding data, checking to make sure it's right, inputting it, putting messages around, and sharing that data. Now, pretty much all of that actually can be automated and taken away and done by software, whether they're software robots or some of the new technology platforms. But what's left is, of course, that humans are still needed because our mental processes are actually much faster and much more sophisticated than even the most advanced artificial intelligence. And all of the empathy, creativity, innovation that you need to drive society, to drive performance, to persuade people to particular ideas is still needed. So what you'll see is routine is taken out, and then the information you need to make decisions and have conversations will be provided to you at the point of need. Now, that's where technology is taking us, but it's very hard to do if you're running a large organization, because large organizations are necessarily very complex and have many, many hundreds, maybe thousands of processes, all of which could be automated. And executives find it very difficult to understand, where do I start? And so my guidance to executives when they're thinking about it is actually you put automation at the heart of your digital strategy, and you create a center of excellence, a group of people who understand the technology, who can work in close collaboration with the business to transform the processes. And many of the technologies that we have around us, and AntWorks is one of them, are this low-code, low-code. So it doesn't involve coding and coding languages. What it involves is understanding how you use a smart user interface to train artificial intelligence models, which take a degree in data science. And so it's the actual technology deployment is relatively straightforward. And the point that I took out of your book, and the reason I wrote that forward, was all of that technology can enable. What's really hard is organizing around it and taking your people and your teams on that journey, and for them to feel motivated and bought into the importance of that journey and its implications for their jobs.
And when we look at the AntWorks business, if I'm a prospective client, what is normally my first interaction with that business, and how does my relationship evolve for those clients that work with you over a period of time?
Okay, right. So we go to market. We're a software business, right? So we have our own professional services organization, which helps clients get started. So, for example, training our what we call cognitive machine reading, which is the ability to read emails and documents, whether that's insurance policies or legal contracts. All of those are now machine readable. And we have machine learning tools and AI tools that need to be trained, a bit like a student leaving university, to read those documents. It doesn't take that long, because essentially it's training a solution to go, let's say it's an insurance policy, and a bit like someone leaving university, they'll be shown this is an insurance policy, right? And then here's another insurance policy, and here's another insurance policy. And the machine learning clicks in, and it recognizes, because it's been told that they're insurance policies, it recognizes the patterns in each one of those documents. And then you need to train our solution to go and find the 10, 15, 100 data points in that document we want to find. And it can do it in any language, pretty much. And that takes some training, but it's all no code, low code. So initially we will build those out for our clients, but the aim is to train our clients to use them, because ultimately it's the tool that can be deployed across a whole organization, enterprise-wide, to read anything from CVs coming into the HR department, to invoices coming into your finance department, to reading contracts that you're writing with suppliers or customers, and provide that data for insight and making transactions. So we do that, and we also train partners. So going back to your point, how do customers interact with us? Well, they come to us with business problems. We configure our solutions to solve those, and we can deliver the first projects, help the client then move forward, deliver their own, or sometimes they look for systems integrator partners or consultancy partners to help them, and we have a network of partners who can do that.
Great. And when you look at the future of AntWorks, Mike, and that capability, where do you see that maturing in the next 12 to 36 months?
Well, I think across the whole automation space, when we come out of the current environment of COVID-19, whenever that is, sooner, I hope, then I think everyone's forecasting digitization and automation as being, along with cloud platforms, as being the big technical changes that are going to be accelerated as a result of our learning of early 2020. So we're expecting very significant demand, and we're starting to see that already in the marketplace. So, for example, we've got clients who are coming to us and say, "Can you automate our ability to use technology to read invoices?" And why do they want to do that? Because they want to accelerate cash flow. Now, that cash flow can be in two directions. Some of them are thinking about, large organizations are saying, we've got supply chains which are threatened by the challenges that we face, and we want to flush cash down the supply chain and process our invoices more quickly so that there's enough cash flow in our supply chain to secure it. So technology will come in to drive more efficiency, to improve cash flow, undoubtedly to reduce costs, and to improve customer intimacy and performance. And we're going to see a lot of demand for that. So we're expecting significant global growth.
And I think that's a great example. One of the things that we talk about on the Change Lab is Insights for Inspiration is AntWorks is actually looking at solving a customer problem and then applying technology to it. And I think that is often lost by some technologists who work deep in the technology in their technology organisation. Mike, as always, with every guest on Change Lab, we ask who has inspired them and why. Who's inspired you, Mike, and why?
Oh, well, that's very clear. Elvis Costello, without a doubt, right? Because he's written the theme, the soundtrack of my life, I guess. At one level, I think I first saw him on the 13th of May, 1978, back in a small club in Birmingham. I've seen him countless times since, and I have a Facebook page with for fans for about 3,000 people on it. But it's more than that. His lifestyle or his challenge of the music industry has reflected my own career, or maybe it's the other way around. And that is his movement between genres from initially new wave into bluegrass, into jazz, classical music, country and western, always looking for a new way to express himself and to challenge boundaries. And I've taken inspiration for that and enjoyed his music for the last 40 years.
And that's something that I think some of us who work in the technology industry just have an endless level of restlessness, and that's what inspires us to go to the next level. When you think about some of the things you've seen in the last 3 to 5 years that have really inspired you from a change perspective, either in a community or in your professional environment, what are they, Mike? What's those 1 or 2 things that have really inspired you and given you hope?
Well, there's obviously, the technology initially with robotic process automation, because it was very understandable and could be deployed at huge scale. And so, someone who early in their career was driving, in PwC process improvement back in the last century, the technology was starting to become universally deployable to solve big problems in every industry, which I'd struggled to solve with the approaches that were available in the last century. So technology inevitably has changed my attitudes and invigorated my enthusiasm to carry on working. But I think that also we live in such a different world now, and I think over the last 3-5 years, the drive for diversity has transformed the workplace. So the opportunity to work at home and abroad, and to work with people from diverse cultures, and to see more women in the workplace. These are things that have made work as enjoyable as my home life, and I spend an awful lot of time at work. So I think technology and diversity would be the two things that I'd focus on.
Great. And what makes you your best self?
Oh, change.
What else would we expect after our conversation, Mike?
I'm very restless,
Yes.
and I'm always looking for the next challenge.